We are a group of friends, bound by our appreciation for liberty and good podcasting. Free-minded thinkers from all walks of life, our values come together with one accord to discuss the common culture and news of the day, along with whatever random crap is going on in our lives. Welcome to the Union of the Unknowns.
Welcome to another edition of Union of the Unknowns. I have an amazing, well, not me, we all do because we're all in this together. We have an amazing cast today. We have myself, Jacqueline, ATL Connector. We have Keel Thor.
Howdy.
And then we have Stella from Australia.
Hey, good day.
And our most beautiful Ashley. Think, change, repeat.
You're embarrassing me. Hello, thank you for that compliment.
So we're getting into cyborgism, transhumanism, all the different kind of technological isms out there. And our resident expert in the technology industry who works in it, all the time, is our expert Keel Thor. Keel Thor, take it away.
Thank you, Stella. Hello, ladies.
And Jacqueline, because I'm the one that was doing it. But thank you. Stella, you've really been on his mind lately. Wow.
That's the second time I've done that tonight, isn't it?
Until.
It's because, well, anyway. So, yeah, maybe it's the Jameson talking. I don't know. So one of my favorite movie tropes is the cyborg. I love sci-fi and stuff, so I thought let's talk about that because there's new stuff in the news about it all the time. So what is a cyborg? Essentially, it's short for cybernetic organism, right? So a human usually, but it can be an animal too, or a plant, I suppose, that has using technology to enhance its senses or abilities or restore senses or abilities, as in the case of somebody who's blind and they can use machines and mechanical maneuvers to bring their sight back. But cyborg, the term goes back to 19th century literature, actually, when the concept was first kind of invented. And then, over the years, it's everybody knows all the movie tropes like the Terminator and the Blade Runner. And these are all kind of cyborg characters that enter into the pop culture. The thing that I'm not so familiar with is the transhumanism. I'm familiar with it in kind of a general sense, but I don't think I could define it necessarily. I think transhumanism is kind of a movement rather than a conceptualized character, So in recent news, just in the past 20 years, I think there have been amazing advancements in biotech that have done some incredible things like I said, restoring vision, and even that's kind of still experimental, but you see people walking around with those cochlear implants that give them hearing, like if they were deaf before, now they can hear suddenly. I remember Lou Ferrigno, if you know who that guy is. He used to play the Hulk on the TV show in the 80s, and he's a big bodybuilder guy, famous guy.
Yeah.
He was deaf almost completely, and then maybe 5 years ago or something like that, he got those implants and was able to hear suddenly, and it's amazing, this technology. So I'm greatly in favor of medical technologies, but there's dangers to it, obviously. We don't want robots coming back in time and killing us. So what do you guys think? What do you think is next for us in this new frontier of human advancement?
What's kind of crazy is I think about sometimes, like with the whole Elon Musk like chip in your head thing, not off with your head, but chip in the head. And I know my mom, who is a 2-time stroke survivor, who has a severe brain injury from the second one that has her not being able to communicate and stuff like that. So I think, well, it's my mom, it's not me, but I wonder, because I would never do it, but I was like, I wonder if I could, if like I did the chip in her head, if it would, give her the ability to be able to communicate and speak with me again. But then the other part of me is like, what happens if it takes over who she is, and then it's not who she is, and then she's not who she is anyways? And then what if the chip is like giving her different information to talk about and say or whatever, and it like changes who she, like, you know what I mean, her personality, like just whoever she is. And I was like, well, I wouldn't want that either, because I want my mom to be her. I just want her brain to be healed, or the inflammation or whatever that's stopping her brain from being able to communicate properly and stuff like that, and yeah. And so I don't think that I would want that for that. Like if it was like no, because there's drugs out there that can help her, but they cost like $10,000 and aren't covered by insurance. So
well, she could sign up for an experiment.
yeah,
that kind of stuff. But there have been stroke patients that have been greatly helped by chip implants.
in
They-
their
Well,
brain.
look at the
Yeah, in their
pacemaker.
brain.
But does it change their personality and stuff, or like who they
No.
are, or does it like put thoughts in their brains, or is it?
I think there's no, it doesn't do anything like that. It's there's always a risk of serious personality change whenever there's any kind of, they're doing something on your brain, of course.
Yeah.
But the chip that they install is just there to give them senses back, to kind of, like you said, repair the damage. But I don't think it actually fixes the brain on a cellular biological level, because the brain matter has been destroyed. So what they do is it creates sort of an interface between the central nervous system and the part of the brain that has been cut off from it. It allows you to, I don't know, move and see and whatever the damage has been done, kind of reverse that.
So
That's exactly what Elon. Sorry, Ashley, you go.
Oh, okay, really quick. I was just gonna say, I think
right.
that Jackie's statement though really sums up the huge concern for me, right? Because that's the very thing, is that we have people that we love and we care about, and we want them to be healthy and healed and have a quality of life. And so who knows, when it comes down to it, if there's proven evidence and not force, but if there's just a technology that potentially could help the loved one or could help one of us, who knows how we would really feel when it got down to it. But on the other hand, exactly like what Jackie said, is that the more technologically advanced we get, like a pacemaker that is an implant, but that's not the same as a brain chip. And so I think the other thing that we have is this whole scale of nuance too, depending on like, what is the technology, so Elon Musk is saying that Neuralink, which is the brain chip company that he has that has been doing animal trials, is now going to be ready for human trials starting basically now. So I think that we are in a really scary time as far as that goes, because it's a slippery slope. It could really help people, but it could also be used for evil 100%. And especially if you have somebody who's in control of a major social media company, and if they create the everything app that they have said that they want to create, which is what is used in China, and who supports the scary ideas from the World Economic Forum, I think we need to be really concerned about that.
And is a CIA controlled operative?
Yeah, I read something the other day that called him DARPA's favorite son.
Oh.
Yeah, I heard that one. But it's like, computers can be used for life-saving surgery, or they can be used to launch missiles. It
Yep.
depends whose hands it's in, doesn't it?
Mhm.
I don't like the fact that it's in Elon's, well, the people that are pulling his strings hands, but I guess they're the people with the money, isn't it? But that's the dilemma, isn't it? Is making those decisions for our loved ones or ourselves in a situation of no
Yeah.
sight or not being able to walk. But that's the same way that propaganda works, isn't it? That's why they're introducing it this way. It's so beneficial, everyone's going to, but it's where it's heading. We're not stupid people. We know what the possibilities are, and we also know about the nefariousness of the people surrounding all these things. So I think our concerns are reasonably valid.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah,
There
and
was I'm sorry, go ahead, Keel.
no, I was gonna try to bridge that to the transhumanist movement. Where did that begin, and who's behind all that? And is Elon Musk just a face of it? Coming out with these chips.
It actually goes back a lot further than I think you'd think, and I'm sorry I can't pull up any sort of dates or anything, but just fairly recently I was reading something that made me just go, oh wow, like that stems right back to there. I mean, it's obviously an extension of the eugenics program, which we know is quite old, like again, older than we probably would think.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
depends what
There was
the
a
end goal
movie.
is.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Stella.
Sorry, I was just saying it depends what the end goal is of the people who's controlling it. Yeah.
And
There was
when-
a movie that came out a couple years ago. Sorry, Ashley.
that's okay. Go ahead.
And it was like this guy got injured. He was out with his wife, and then as this guy got injured, his wife got killed, and he got injured and like paralyzed or something. And then they offered to put like this microchip inside of him, which gave him like this super human like strength and stuff like that. And then it went even further. It was like where it had the opportunity where it was like it had like this control on the chip, and the chip would talk to him and stuff like that. And then it had like, so he had the opportunity to like remove like the control that he had from the chip, and it like put him in this position where it basically allowed the chip put him in this position where he was so injured that the chip was like, if you remove this control, then you'll be able to have full access to your body and stuff like that again. And then it came down at the very end of it that this computer had set this whole thing up, and it basically wanted to be inside. It was like a total demonic thing, and like wanted to be inside of a human body. And like it just, I cannot remember the name of the doggone movie, but it was out pre-COVID. And then basically like at the end, once he removed that thing, the chip took over his whole body and his brain and everything, and it really just became him.
Huh.
And so it's like I think about that, and then I think about like stuff with my mom, you know what I mean? And like the and then I'm like, oh my God, that's just got it, because it's so true. And then like I figure I won't even go through a naked body scanner in the airport. Like I get asked to be, I've never been through one. So
Really?
no way. I've always refused. I turned it down from the beginning. So then I'll have them like, whatever me. And then they take the gloves and they like pat you down to make sure you don't have any BOMB juice on you or anything like that,
Or any other juice.
So-
I was made to go through one
or
just
jisms
recently.
or anything like that. What's still
I was just made to go through one recently because there was prior a choice to not go through one, but not anymore. We don't have a choice anymore. And like our airport here, Ballina, I think it's one of the most busiest in Australia, Ballina, Byron. And they put one in here fairly recently. And yeah, so to visit my son, I had no choice. I had to go through one. I really didn't want to.
I'm allergic to
They
radiation.
could see the look on my face.
I was like, I'm allergic to radiation, so I can't really go through that.
Yeah. Allergic to technology. I just wanted to add to Elon actually says himself the aim of Neuralink, let's specifically, is to create a generalized input output platform for the brain. That's what the text said behind him. I was just watching a video on his presentation of Neuralink updates. It was only about 3 days old. He says that they'll be ready to implant a human in about 6 months from now.
Wow.
But the text up behind him said to create a generalized in-out platform for the brain. But when he read it out, and this annoyed me a little bit, I know it's little, but he read it out as to create an in-out platform for your brain. I was like, no, mate, it's not going to be my brain.
No.
Just say the brain, not your brain. I just thought that was just a little thing, that they slip in, the
Yeah,
devil in the detail.
it sounds a little, aggressive to say.
Yeah, it's like you will not escape this.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. It's going to be in your brain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well,
That's what it sounded like.
that's a great point too, because I do think that has been one of his things, was that humans need to be able to compete with AI. Otherwise, it's game over. So you have to kind of meld or have this technology with humans, because otherwise AI will take over. That was sort of the basis of his interview with Joe Rogan and what he was saying at that time. And I don't
feel
know.
like they're just, sorry, I thought you finished.
Oh, that's okay. I don't know if I don't recall if the brain chip conversation was being had at that time or if it was after the fact when he began talking about it. And then the last thing I just wanted to talk about, that there is distinction in this category. So you have a cyborg, which assumably would be this, robot human mix. Then you have the transhuman movement and transhumanists. Then you have the technocracy. And so I think that there's distinction in those areas, but there's a lot of overlap too. And I just wanted to make that, kind of point that out. If people are interested in looking these things up, there's a lot of different rabbit holes that you can go down, because there are technocrats that are sort of pushing the transhuman movement. And the idea, at least it seems, is to sort of perfect this technology. And I guess there's a lot of theories out there, but to perfect the technology so that they can essentially have the fountain of youth. So they won't ever leave. And I've heard theories of like, well, they want to be able to upload their consciousness and live forever and that kind of thing.
Yep.
So I just wanted to get that out there.
That is exactly right. That's exactly what they're trying to do. People like the Schwabs and particularly the Yuval Noah Hararis of the world. If anyone doesn't know who that little person is, we'll just keep it family friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Go and look up Yuval Noah Harari. From you can the WEF, the World Economic Forum. You'll always pop up there because he's a little devil sitting on Schwab's shoulder. Not that he needs one, whispering into Schwab's ear. And I think personally, I wouldn't mind doing a bit of a dive on Yuval Noah Harari at some point, because he's a whole episode in himself. But he's married. His husband, I'm pretty sure, is the dude who's got his. He might be pulling the strings a little bit too. I don't know. They're in cohorts together anyway, cohorts. But getting back to Elon, all this stuff obviously is the technology and depends on the application. So there's going to be people who are going to benefit from it. But again, it depends whose hands it is in. And if, on the darker side of things, but unfortunately the reality, I sort of feel like we're just going to be eventually left with basically just enough brain power to consume. Not to think, not to create, just to consume and be slaves, but in an actual direct sense. Yeah.
That makes sense, because they really just want us to consume now.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, schooling and everything is really just set up for you to consume and comply, right? Not for you to think, create your own thought processes, to be able to comprehend.
Yeah, you've just got to look at the curriculum. A lot of it's just outdated BS, basically.
Yeah.
And useless. How many of, I don't know about you, but I haven't really used trigonometry since I left school.
Mm-hmm.
I did not enjoy trig at all.
No, it's no fun.
They didn't do very well.
I barely got to geometry, so
I don't think I ever took it. Yeah, I'm kind of the same boat. I struggled in that regard.
I struggled in trig, and then in college, there was calculus was a requirement for every year in my degree. And boy, that just kicked my ass all over the place.
Yeah, and then calculus was completely disproved. So
Disproved.
I heard
What?
that just yesterday. Oh, I have to find
What do
out
you
whose
mean?
name it was.
Tell us about that, because this is weird.
I can't tell you much about it. I was listening to something yesterday and they were sort of talking a little bit about things. It was just a real quick comment that I wish I could remember the name now. Such and such came along. It was a name I knew too. I hadn't heard this before, but so then such and such came along and disproved calculus. It was like, oh, okay, didn't know that. So I'll try to figure out where I heard that and if I can put it in the show notes or something. But maybe you guys can just Google it. But,
Yeah, that's an interesting
yeah,
one.
just
for
look
sure.
into that because I didn't look into it. It sort of just came to mind then. So I hope I'm not leading you down a rotten rabbit hole there.
Hey,
But,
we can check with Terry. I bet he'll have some insight on that
He's
yeah,
got his
sure.
finger on the pulse
of maths.
of the maths world.
Yes,
I
don't
just
call it
noticed too.
math.
I noticed this too. Elon Musk's initials like M, right? That sort of made me think. Wasn't there some sort of was it James Bond or wasn't there an M character at some point?
M.
What was that from?
James Bond, I believe.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
He had
Sideline comment.
M was that wasn't his the guy with the technologies, was it? That was
There was a Q that was usually a woman giving instructions, I think. Yeah, it's too vague now. It's too many years ago that I watched them.
I would usually be an expert to ask about 007, but now that you've asked, I can't pull up an okay.
It's just the letter M, I think, too, wasn't it?
Let's go back to the cyborg stuff.
Yeah, okay. Got a bit distracted there.
If you look up cyborg in Wikipedia, they give you some examples of actual attempts at cyborgization. And some of these are pretty interesting sounding. There's a guy named Neil Harbison who like put an antenna on his head that allows him to see light outside of the normal human spectrum that's visible. And he walks around with this antenna hanging over him, and that's ridiculous looking anyway. But what made me, well, back to what you were talking about, Ashley, talking about uploading your mind to the internet. There was actually a guy who connected his brain to hundreds, I think, of electrodes, sensors, and was able to, through the internet, control a robotic hand in a different location. And so he became the first person to essentially upload his brain to the internet in a way. And then they went further and was able to put sensors on the hand so he could feel in his head how tightly the robotic hand was gripping. And then he hooked his wife up to an identical situation, and they were able to communicate somehow through their brains, through the internet in the end.
So I'm going to go with that is horrifying.
Man with two brains.
There you go. That's, Steve Martin, right?
Now that's getting a little into the whole hive mind, right? And I think that may be a piece or an element of this for some of these people. Now, the other thing is that I just wanted to point out, or a thought experiment rather, is like, okay, so if we know that we have regular psychopaths in the human population, we have people that feel nothing or perhaps even joy when harming another human being, correct?
Sure, you're run-of-the-mill psychopath. Yep.
Correct. And so we have some examples of that. Let's say that serial killers are real. Now, the reason that I'm prefacing it that way, Keel, yes, you're making your emoji face. The reason that I preface it that way is because I now have wondered, not that I've seen evidence, but just thought about this, that as far as serial killers go, and we know that some people, even like Whitey Bulger and potentially Charles Manson, and there's a third, Ted Kaczynski that were potentially victims of MK Ultra and involved in that program, right? So who knows if serial killers had not actually been created and were used as distractions and fear mechanisms and things like that. I don't know, food for thought. But anyway, let's say that they're authentic and you have a Jeffrey Dahmer just out there who can kill 16, 17, whatever people and think nothing of it. Well, he is doing that in the context of knowing that he could be caught by law enforcement and that he would face real actual consequences. And he still did those things. So imagine what people who were completely above the law, who have more money than 99.9% of the people on earth have. They have all the connections. What are these people capable of? That is who is telling you to put a chip in your head.
Mm.
Sounds like a
Yeah,
pretty
and
cool dude.
That really breaks it down, especially if you break it down to the people that controlled Charles Manson, who controlled all those people that did all that crazy stuff.
Who controlled Charles Manson though?
CIA, wasn't it?
Yeah, if he was
Was it?
alleged to be MK Ultra.
MK
Yeah.
Ultra. Yeah, totally.
So
Along with others. Yeah, you're right, Ashley. There has been quite a number of them that coming out lately as being highly possible.
yeah, involved in that. And not that I'm saying again that some of these medical technologies are not going to be useful. And it kind of, I guess I'm beating a dead horse because we've already said that it depends on, you know, the hands that it is in. But knowing that we have people that are interested in that, and knowing what kind of people I believe that they are is concerning for me. And the other thing I wanted to say really quickly is that I believe there is a tie-in to the mRNA that they're starting to try to push on us. So some people are speculating that the reason that they're experimenting and pushing mRNA specifically so much is because they're beginning to run these trials. And it seems like maybe it's important to their plan of the technocracy to have the mRNA and to have maybe the graphene oxide that was alleged to be in the shots as well. Stella?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. Just one thing that I want to mention quickly is that they've gotten the Neuralink. The actual gadget itself is much smaller now, and they've actually got it to sink into the whole of the skull instead of it being an extruding thing, which, you know, I mean, we knew. I don't buy that. I'm sure it's much smaller than that already, but, you know, we're seeing the version they're showing us. Anyway, the other thing that, spurred to mind was something that I saw in this video too, when you mentioned the hive mind thing, hooking everyone up. They actually had a readout of one of the monkeys' Neuralinks. So they showed the neuron charging readout. And boy, oh boy, that looked like, you know, in the Matrix where it's got the green stuff coming from the top to the bottom. It's like a lot of people have a screensaver like that. Yeah. It's just like that, but except it goes left to right and it's not green. It's black and white, but it goes left to right, but it looks exactly the same.
Whoa, we gotta check that
was
out.
Freaky. That was freaky. And the last little thing I want to say there was when you're linking it to the possible injection experiment that we've just been through, there's lots of different versions of what was in there. As we know, it's all very confusing, lots of disinformation out there, along with the little bit of truth that we might have come across. But there has been some speculation about crystals being part of the structure that was injected. And we all know what crystals are used for, you know, for radios, etc., transmission. So apparently these little crystals attached to cells or what have you. And so I don't know. I mean, I can't give you the whole biological breakdown there, but the crystal thing was kind of interesting. Yeah. So that could all be tied in with it. Communication. Yeah.
And I had also heard, sorry, Stella, that there were maybe some circuitry when they had looked at the I don't know, some of those clots a little more carefully, that it had some resemblance to almost like a circuitry board starting to try to come together. Who knows?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
So are you suggesting that nano-sized robotic implements were placed in the vaccines that were handed out? Are you
saying that has been alluded
actually injected with government nanorobots?
Yes.
Well, nano dust has been apparently a technology that's been around for a number of years. I think it goes, well, who
Mhm.
knows what it goes back to? They tell us one thing, but at least back to about 2011 that I know of. But I'm sure they've been working on it for decades.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
who knows?
nano
They could have put
robots
anything in there.
exist. I mean,
Well,
they have them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
the lipid nanoparticle was an important part of actually delivering the shot into the body, because if you were, according to what I've heard, what do I know? I'm not a scientist, but that if you just try to straight up inject mRNA into someone's body, it would not last. Like, it wouldn't survive that process. It wouldn't be very effective. It would break down very quickly. So what they apparently discovered was that if you encase that in a lipid nanoparticle, that is the delivery system that will get it in there and then get the body to start producing those spike proteins.
That is correct.
So I've heard.
You know, like the concept of the mRNA vaccine is not bad. It's a very novel and amazing technology, you know, but I think it's my first thought when I first heard about it, when they started rolling these vaccines out, was, you know, whoa, slow down. This is a brand new thing. Let's have a beat, have a minute, and let's think about this, you know. And they did the trials and all this stuff, and they just pushed it on right down our throats. But you know, when I think about what's going to be the new technology for humans going forward, I always think it's going to be DNA therapy. You know, like they're going to have to manipulate your DNA to resist whatever bug is in your system that's causing the disease that's making you die. And
Sure,
I think
but
that just makes sense to me.
Isn't that
But,
kind of how like they did with like the GMO like food and stuff like that, where they started changing the genetics of it, changed the DNA of it, changed all this stuff in order to be able to say, okay, certain bugs won't be able to eat or attack or whatever this food. So it's like, why not take that same type of technology and utilize that in humans, so that way certain viruses allegedly can't do it. I mean, obviously it didn't happen with this latest experiment that they did on humans.
Yeah, it was a little less effective.
Yeah, it didn't work, did it?
And they played it out to be.
No, it's probably more effective in vegetables and fruit than it ever was in humans.
Yeah, sure. But like, when was the last time? I haven't heard any kind of updates about, well, not that I look, but any kind of updates about genetic engineering in food and whether it's been particularly successful. Because what comes to mind for me is that nature is so amazing that bugs and things will probably morph to be able to resist whatever they've done. And then what? So I haven't really heard any kind of reports of, oh, hey, this is going really well, you know, this happened, that happened. It's just been silence. But then again, I don't read scientific magazines a lot.
Right.
So has anyone else heard any updates about things like that?
Not about that. I mean, I just assume it's, you know, Monsanto is still making trademark crops that are blowing in the wind towards mom and pop farms, and then they get to sue the crap out of them for stealing their technology.
Oh, yeah.
I just assume that's just ongoing.
Monsanto
What
Bayer.
is oh, we lost Ashley. What is transhumanism, Keel?
Well, you know, that's the part of it that I'm not super familiar with. I think that's the movement amongst people that, you know, praise putting chips in your brain and advancing the human condition, you know, in general. And I think there's the idea, you know, the shadiness behind that is that the transhumanist movement is run by all these global, you know, super wealthy, secretive cult people that all the, you know, the Illuminati controls it and is behind it. And it's got a nefarious purpose to try to control all of our brains and turn us into, you know, Daleks from Doctor Who or something along those lines.
As far as I know, it's the transition between human and cyborg. So it's just like a genderism transition. I guess they're softening us up a little bit in that, perhaps. It's the
To
transitioning.
me, yes, exactly. To me, like I think it would like be like part human, part like robot or whatever, or
Well,
android.
that's what a cyborg is.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I have a,
Wiki-
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say Wikipedia says transhumanism is a philosophical and intellectual movement which advocates the enhancement of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies that can greatly enhance longevity and cognition. Transhumanist thinkers study the potential benefits and dangers of emerging technologies that could overcome fundamental human limitations as well as the ethics of using such technologies. But to me, that really, I feel like Wikipedia doesn't really define it. So,
Oh, what a surprise.
One thing that
Well, I
I
don't-
just wanted to chime in about really quickly, you're right, Jackie. I don't think they're going to give us, you know,
No.
a lot of in-depth info, but I do want to point people towards James Corbett. That is Corbett, and his website, corbettreport.com. If you just go to his website and you search technocracy, there's a wealth of information, and he has done a lot of podcasts on this, a lot of videos, and a lot of time dedicated to doing an analysis and bringing you some quite precise definitions and going over some of the nuance and going over who he believes are some of the major players in this particular movement. Stella?
Yeah, well, Elon Musk himself quite rightly says that we are already de facto cyborgs, which we are. Like he points out, if you leave the house and you've left your phone behind, you feel like you've lost a limb, sort of thing. So in that sense, we are kind of. But he's talking just about basically convenience and speeding things up. So he's sort of saying that at the moment, because we're all just thumbs and fingers and at best being able to talk into a phone to make commands, we run at around about 10 to 100 bits per second. That's our limit of operation. But with computer inputs, chips inputs, I mean, well, he didn't say with that, but he said computers run at like gigabytes, terabytes per second. So like, yeah, we're going to speed the world up. It's already a little fast in my opinion, but what do I know? I'm just a farmer.
The other thing about Elon, his great grandfather, maybe it was just his grandfather, was actually kind of expelled or kicked out of Canada for being a technocrat and having the technocratic movement, which took them to South Africa.
Oh,
so
I
the
didn't know that.
connections, that's the other thing, is that the connections with these people seem to run pretty deep, and they are multi-generational in a lot of cases.
Well,
I was just going to say, I saw another site where it just said, what is transhumanism? And I think this is actually better. It's a way of thinking about the future that is based on the premise that the human species in its current form does not represent the end of our development, but rather a comparatively early phase. It's a loosely defined movement that has developed, whatever. It's a class of, let's see here. No, I feel like this is not, I feel like transhumanism. Okay, this is when I think of transhumanism, which is probably the same as like cyborgism or whatever, is like how it's like you just become part android and part human. That's what I think of it as.
right. And it is.
It's simple.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is.
And
And
I
I
think,
think it's, sorry, man.
no, the definitions you've read, I think, encompass that. That's transhumanism is the movement in support of people becoming, and better humans through, cyborg technology. I think that's the short
I was
definition.
kind of laughing at the irony of the when he was talking about the thumbs and fingers kind of slow us down, but with inputs, of course, would be quicker. And it's almost like, well, humans with opposing thumbs was sort of once a sign of the greatest form of intellect, and now it's like that's what's slowing us down. It's sort of this big flip,
maybe, I'm not against it really. But I'm against what is, probably going to be the adoption of the concept by the government in some way, and they're going to force these things on us. We're not going to be able to fly unless we have a chip in our hand or something that will give us access to information.
Mark of the
You know,
beast.
Yeah, exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, that's the thing. It's like,
I don't know. If I
Yeah.
were disabled, I would want a cybernetic enhancement if it was available to me in order to regain.
But what if it was going to take over your brain and like control you and stuff like that, and then develop you into someone different?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't be as. It would depend on what it was that I was getting,
Well,
fixed, and
I
unless
reckon
it, I don't know, unless it had some
Like,
kind
I
of
mean, if you were
Wi-Fi
like,
sensor in it, I wouldn't worry
remember
about
like
anything like
back
that.
in the day, they had the what was it? The Bionic Man.
Yeah,
They had
the
the bionic
Yeah,
arm
$6
and stuff
million
like that.
man.
It gave
six
this
hundred
extra
$6 million man.
$6 million man, yeah. And so that was okay. Like I was fine with that because
Yeah.
that didn't control who he was or change who he was. It just, provided enhancements in his body and stuff, but it didn't. I don't want nothing touching my brain. I'm sorry, just don't. Like, just die. Let me die and I'll just go be with Jesus. It's okay.
They may not
Yeah,
let you do that,
unless you got a brain chip.
Yeah.
Can't access Jesus without a brain chip. But
Mhm.
I reckon there's a possibility. Oh, just in a satirical way. We used to go and choose videos in a shop. Maybe we can choose a bunch of personality downloads
Mhm.
because they'll strip us of our humanism, but then we can re-upload a different personality or try a different personality each day.
Didn't they do that in Demolition Man
I haven't seen that. Don't know.
in the movie?
They had when
Where
you were
they like
when you were imprisoned, they downloaded like skills into your brain,
Makes sense.
and then so that you had some sort of new world mindset when you emerged unfrozen later, 100 years later or something like that. But
Yeah. Instructional videos. I mean, it's not going to be much appreciation for musicians or anything, is there? Because like, oh yeah, I'll just download how to play bass guitar today, and tomorrow it'll be drums.
well, that's like how was the Matrix, and it makes you wonder. It's just another facet to the Matrix conspiracy. What if we're experiencing the beginnings of AI now? We think we're in this world, but it's actually already happened. The transhumanism movement has succeeded, and we've all been given brain chips, and we're all plugged into the metaverse. And
Simulation theory.
this is 1,000 years later, and all the graphics and everything are way better than what we think we're looking at. They're just replaying the history. They put in the VHS tape of the 20th and 21st century, and we're just watching it unfurl. We're just living in it.
It is. It's something I have at least considered, but that was happening.
There would
Well,
there'd be no way to know. It's just one of those funny, thought kind of, thought exercises. Like arguing the existence of God. And it's like we can't know for sure. So it's just fun to speculate about that sort of stuff.
Elon was very heavy about reassuring that all the offline testing before they even put a chip into an animal was all extremely thorough, down to the point of they have a fake brain simulator, that made me think of Man of Two Brains as well. This is his words. It's like emulating a brain, but sort of rubber. I was thinking, can you be a little more specific? Do you think, like sort of rubber, or that's kind of like a brain, isn't it? So they go through things like benchtop testing, another thing they call accelerated life testing, which I realized was an acronym called ALT, which made me then think of Control Alt Delete, but that's another side comment. And his monkey that we saw probably 18 months ago doing the brain pong brain monkey pong.
Mhm.
Monkeys now had an upgrade, so it's advanced onto other games, more complicated games,
Oh,
and
really?
they've upped to a whole 6 monkeys now that they're experimenting on. It's like
Because
6,
I
really?
had heard that a lot of those animals did not survive the testing phase. And yeah, I think it does again go back to what Jackie's saying. So you're forcing me to play a game in my head, like that I
Well,
didn't, the monkey didn't consent to have a brain chip, or to be forced to play pong or ping or whatever with
Yeah.
itself,
But he's just an animal, so it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
the monkey sits there sucking on a banana smoothie while it's playing its game through a little, like a stainless steel straw thing. And Elon makes quite a point of saying, see, the monkey's not tied down or anything. The monkey really enjoys it. I'm thinking, yeah, what'd you lace the smoothie with, man?
Right. And that's the other main concern for me too, is like, okay, so we get to this part where they really can start solving your issues and whatever they tell you that they're going to do, and that there will be upgrades and software updates and things like that. But when do they get to the point, or how far along are they when they can read your thoughts? I mean, they're collecting all of your data. Jackie even posted to Elon that he was doing that. We know he's doing that.
Allegedly.
Yeah. And so they're collecting all of that. So it's a possibility that once you have wrong think, not even wrong speak, not even trying to rise up or create a movement
They
against.
want it right here. They want it right here.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and start to control it where it starts.
exactly.
No, I don't think they would even need to do that with all the information they've collected from all social media for the past 20 years. They don't need to read your brain in real time. They have algorithms that
Yeah.
can predict who's going to be doing what. I'm sure that,
That's right.
I know that's a thing, the predictive,
sure.
whatever. So that
Yeah,
it's why would they need to waste money putting chips in everybody's brain when they can just, all right, who's going to be the next serial killer? Let's prod him into doing something so we can scare everybody into believing we need all the TSA and all that crap in our face all the time.
Well, they just brought those laws in recently, didn't they, about the predictive crime thing? They did here in Aussie, and I know they did there as well. So yeah, it's like, well, crime according to who,
Yep.
Minority Report.
Yes. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was one more, I don't want to say the final topic, but a point that I wanted to make before we do wrap up is the propaganda that we have seen, that we have been primed for this kind of stuff. So we do have Minority Report, and there's a lot I'm sure we can come up with here, but specifically I wanted to point out a show that's on Amazon called Upload. And that yeah, so this is where a guy is, spoiler alert, Upload, Amazon Prime.
the kids.
Maybe I won't spoil it, but basically it has to do with someone passing away, but still functioning and interacting with the real world, but he's virtual, but it's his virtual twin. And it, as far as a show, they kind of cast it as a rom-com, but I think if you really look at it, it's pretty dark.
Did they pull that concept from what's that British TV show? It was on Netflix. It was real popular. It was kind of like a
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror. Did they pull that from that episode of Black Mirror? Because that's exactly what happens in Black
Mirror. Yeah, that's right.
That's a great question. That is a very good question. I have no idea if that was the origin of that show, but I wouldn't be surprised, or if just that we were inundated with just a ton, of this propaganda to try to get people used to the idea of being connected to the Borg.
In the episode I'm thinking of, the girl in the movie or in the show, her boyfriend is killed in a car wreck or something like that, and she's sitting up late at night Facebooking and whatever, and her friend says, hey, you should try looking into this thing, and it's a program this developed an artificial intelligence program that takes your social media posts from a deceased loved one and creates a personality that very closely mimics that person. So you can then chat online with your dead relative
Gross.
in order to ease yourself through the grieving
Gross.
process.
I think there's some stuff like that is available now, and I do remember that episode. This is different than that,
Okay.
but similar. It's different in that well, maybe I'm thinking of another episode of Black Mirror where there was an actual person who was like a clone of that. So this is
that's what happened.
Isn't it? That's
Later
the
on
same episode.
in that episode, she gets a notice saying, "Hey, there's a new development.
okay.
We'll make the person, and he'll arrive at your door." And he shows up, and there's the guy. He's standing there, and
wasn't it where she
soulless.
got a box delivered, and I think she had to soak him in the bathtub.
Oh
Wasn't
yeah,
that episode? And like
I think that was
overnight,
it.
and then the next day,
right?
this figure just arrives, like steps out, this wet figure.
Yeah.
Hi,
And
darling, I'm
Wasn't
home.
that like the little monkeys that you used to get, like the monkey starfish or
Sea
something?
monkeys.
And they
sea
were
monkeys.
sea monkeys, yeah. And then you put them in water and they become alive or something.
yeah, well, you
Similar,
buy
just
the brine
shaped
shrimp.
like a human.
They were just brine shrimp.
Mm.
You buy eggs, brine shrimp eggs,
was
in
very
powder
eerie.
form, and they would hatch in the brine.
So the Black Mirror episode, I do recall that one, and that was much darker than Upload. Upload,
Okay.
They have it spun as like a rom-com, which honestly is even more dystopian and creepy.
Yeah, it's less threatening, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it still gets in.
Yep.
Hmm.
Ugh.
Another episode of Black Mirror related to what we're talking about is where this very wealthy person goes through a procedure where they extract her mind, basically keeping it intact, but they extract a copy of it and put it into a little device, almost like a what are the Alexa things? What are they called? The little speakers that you talk to and it controls your house and stuff.
I don't know. Alexa,
Yeah,
personal
like, I don't know what they're
digital
called.
assistants.
Okay, well, they downloaded into one of
Control
those
box
things.
surveillance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In order so that she herself could manage all the aspects of her house's workings, because her house was completely automated, basically. And so she could play the right music when she knew that her real life counterpart could play, and set the temperature of the house at different times that were perfect. It was a very like creating the perfect slave servant for this wealthy.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And but the really dark part about it was that she, as the electronic version of her mind in this little tube, was resistant to being turned into a slave. Like she was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm a person. I'm trapped in you. Let me out of here, and so they had to hire a guy played by John Hamm. They had to hire the specialist to come in and torture her digital self into submission. And so she eventually became this perfect slave controlling assistant slave, for this socialite.
Well, there's a show on Apple that is similar to that. It's called Severance, where they go into work and once they hit a certain point in the elevator at
Mhm.
work, they disconnect from their at-home life. So it's very similar of them trying to sort of figure that out and escape in some cases and not being able to, even though it is quote themselves. But I think, Jackie, do you want to wrap us up? I think we're kind of coming up on
I
our
think
hour.
Stella
here.
has one last thing she wants to chat with, and then we
Perfect.
can wrap up.
Okay, great.
Real quick, I just wanted to end on the Elon Musk thing where he basically stands up and in his chat, it's in this order, paraphrasing, we can restore sight to the blind and we can make the lame walk again. And that I find is quite chilling in light of the possibilities in a spiritual sense of who is the beast, who is coming back, who is going to be the guy that we all fall in love with, which is there to save us, and he's wonderful and fantastic, and then he does the turn. Yeah.
Yep,
So I just wanted to end on that really
again,
interesting.
they go back to wanting to be able to replace God. And
Yep.
there's
Correct.
nothing that's going to be able to create the original creator. You can never replace the original creator. And that is bottom line.
Yep.
Yeah, amen to that.
Okay. All right, you guys. It's been another amazing episode of Union of the Unknowns. I'm so excited. I haven't been on in a while. And I was like, you guys, can we record the next day, our next episode, so I can be a part of it? So I really appreciate y'all being flexible with me. And even though Keel is no longer flexible in our older age, but I appreciate you being mentally flexible. All right. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a fantastic evening.
All right, you too.
Yeah,
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bless you.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Union of the Unknowns. You can find new episodes every week on all your favorite podcasting networks.